Today we're making roast goose with a traditional but not stuffing. Make the brine. I've got salt and sugar going in. Now I'm going to make a 5% salt solution. So the total amount is going to be 8 litres and 5% of that is 320 grams of salt. And I'm going to put 80 grams of sugar in there just because I feel like I need to do that. Also, I'm going to be keeping it simple, so I'm just going to throw a few bay leaves in there. And that's the only other spice I'm going to be putting in this brine. So we'll bring this up to a boil to dissolve all the sugar and the salt, and then we'll add it to the rest of the water. It's nearly at a boil, but I can already see that my salts and sugar is already dissolved. So I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to add this to the rest of the water. So here's the rest of my 8 litres, and I'm going to tip the hot into the cold because the brine needs to be cold before it hits the goose. And because I had this ice cold water to start with, it's already cold enough. So we'll get the goose out. Kind of prep my goose. I just took the bag, the innards out, and cleaned the inside a little bit with some fresh water. So now, simple enough, just add all the brine. Now it's all in there. I'm gonna pop the lid on. I'm gonna stick it in the fridge. I'm gonna flip it a couple of times in the next couple of days too. So my goose has been brining away for 2 days now, 48 hours or so. Now it's time to take it out to brine. Shake it off a little bit, and we'll get it in the pan. Then we're just gonna get some paper towels, and we're just gonna try and blot off as much of the moisture as we can. Once you've blotted most of the moisture off the skin, you just want to get a rack under it and you want to plop it down. Now you want to have this breast side up and you're going to stick it back in the fridge and let it sit uncovered overnight to try and help dry out the skin a little bit more. We're going to make a quick compound butter to go on the breast of the goose. So I've just got some butter that I've chopped up and left out at room temperature. Now we're going to add some parsley, some rosemary, some thyme and some sage. These are like my main 4 herbs that I always use. Use the herbs you kind of like. So we're just going to start working the herbs into the butter. Also to this, we're going to add some salt. Now we're going to make a stuffing for the goose. So I'm going to add a whole bag of breadcrumbs to my bowl here. All right, now since my breadcrumbs nearly filled my bowl, I'm going to add some stock straight away to try and lessen the volume in here. This is just homemade chicken stock that I'm pouring in here. Then we're going to add some parsley, some sage. Oh, this is just finely chopped and it's all fresh herbs. Then we're going to add some thyme, some rosemary. This is some orange zest we're going to put in there now. Then we've got some chestnuts that I'm just going to crush in my hands because I want these to be left a little bit chunkier. So as you're going through the stuff and you get a little chunk of chestnut. So we're just going to crumble those in as well. All right, to this, I also sauteed off some mushrooms and onions that we're going to add as well. Okay, once you got all that in, you're going to start mixing it with your hands to combine. Okay, so I got my goose and I've already got it prepared, which means I removed the big globs of fat here and I've given it another wipe down with paper towels. Now, also an optional step, which I'm going to do, is I've just separated the skin from the meat on the tops of the breast here. And I'm just going to get a little bit of the compound butter and we're going to shove in that little pocket that I created there. So what this is going to do is keep that breast nice and juicy for us so it doesn't dry out while the rest of the bird comes up to temperature. So we're just going to go ahead and shove some of the butter down in that little pocket. Okay, now with your stuffing, you just want to fill the cavity up with it. Now to keep the cavity closed, I'm not going to go around the whole back of the bird. I'm just going to get the 2 drumsticks right on the end and I'm just going to tie those together. You just grab a piece of string, wrap it around a few times, pull it closed, and one more to lock it off. And we just snip off the excess. Now I want to keep the wings in and I want to get this little flap of skin from the neck. We'll keep that underneath and we'll just put one piece of string around the top. And we snip the excess off. So now we're just going to give it one last pat down on the top. Make sure there's no extra moisture laying around. Not too much, because remember we have brined this goose already. And because I have a fear of running out of goose, and I love leftovers, I'm making a second one. These are going to go into a preheated 150-degree oven with the fan on to keep everything nice and dry in there until the internal temperature's reached. You just want to put a little bit of water in the bottom of the tray, so when the fat starts to render out of these birds, it doesn't burn on the bottom of the baking tray. Not too much, just a little bit, because goose does have a lot of fat that's going to start rendering out. So I've made up another batch of the stuffing here, but to this one, we're going to do it a little bit different. So I've got some beaten up eggs here that I'm going to mix in with the stuffing mix, and then we're going to give this a mix through. So I've liberally buttered a loaf pan here, and I'm going to add my stuffing to the loaf pan. Once you've got your stuffing into the pan, you just want to cover it with foil, nice and tightly. Now you want to stick this into a 200-degree preheated oven. All the fat that comes out of the start of the cavity, you want to cut up into little tiny pieces. You want to add a little bit of water to the pot. Now you want to stick this on a medium heat until all the fat's rendered out. As you can see, the fat's finished rendering. And I can tell this by the little bits are just turning a slight golden brown. Now you don't want to take it too much further than this because otherwise they will start to burn. You get a nasty taste in your fat. We'll let it cool down a little bit and then we'll strain it. So my goose is finished cooking. I temped it, and it's right at 72 degrees internally. Now that should bring it up with carryover cooking and resting time, should bring it up to the safe temperature of 74. So we're gonna let these rest. So the stuffing's been in the oven for about 45 minutes now, and now I'm just gonna remove the top. I'm gonna stick it back in for another 10 or 15 minutes just to get nice color on the top. Once the stuffing had nice color on the top, I took it out. I just let it rest for about 10 minutes on top of the stove. Now we're just gonna turn it out. I'm just gonna sit it upside down on the board for a little bit, just to let it cool down a bit more before we take some slices out of it. Once this is cooled off a little bit, you wanna cut it into some slices. I've got my non-stick pan heating up on the stove. Now I'm gonna add some goose fat. Now you wanna toast off your slices in the goose fat. Okay, once they got some good color, you wanna flip them over and toast the other side. Once you got good color on the other side, you wanna take them out and put them on a paper towel lined plate. So the other reason why I'm going for the stuffing first is because this leg is still ripping hot. Let's try the stuffing first. What's not to love about this? Fried in goose fat. I don't need to say anything more. Now for the star attraction. I better take another bite just to make sure I give a correct review of it. Brining the goose is the only way to go. It brings the salts right directly in close to the bone, seasons it perfectly. In Austria, Martini Ganzel is a yearly thing. It's got something to do with some religious stuff that I'm not really sure about, but I'm sure glad they have it because this is absolutely delicious.